If you're a sports fan like I am, you have no doubt watched hundreds, if not thousands of hours of sports content. And even if you're not a sports fan, you've still probably seen your share of sports on television. Well, as someone who's worked in the sports media industry for over a decade now, I have met some incredible people in that field. And today in this video, I'm excited to introduce you to one of them. Erica Weston works for Fox Sports Midwest in St. Louis, and in the last year alone, she covered a Stanley Cup championship and a postseason run by the hometown St. Louis Cardinals. So yeah, she has some stories to tell. What's up everybody, Tara Wellman here. Welcome back to my little corner of the internet. This is a place where you and I get the chance to connect through relatable stories and real life experiences, all tied together in a nice little bow with a common thread of sports. That is what I love, that is what I do, and it's also what has connected me to some amazing people. Erica Weston now works in St. Louis, although she's currently quarantined in Arizona, just like all of us, hiding away from the coronavirus and waiting for sports to return. But her journey in the sports world has gone all over the map, literally. From Colorado to LA to Tucson to St. Louis, she's been all over the place. And truly, her story is one about perseverance and dedication and belief in herself, which is an amazing lesson I think that we can all learn. But she's got a lot more to say as well. So I'm very happy to welcome to the show, Miss Erica Weston. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Anytime, these things are always great. It's great to squeeze them in when we're in normal schedule, just to get a little bit away from the normal day-to-day grind. But especially right now, these interpersonal communications, any sort of dialogue, any podcast, any radio stuff, anything like that. It's always good to do these, especially right now when we're literally just all sitting at home, staring at our phones, waiting for a memo to pop up saying, hey, sports is returning tomorrow, So anytime.
It's crazy how much, and I think people in all walks of life, from fans to professionals in this industry to athletes and whatever, are realizing just how much sports are interwoven into everything that we do in our culture and in our relationships and in our jobs. It's challenging to figure out what to fill all of that time with. I'm even finding at this point, like, there's not even anything on TV that I want to watch. I just want there to be sports back.
It's funny because, obviously we're dependent on sports for our profession, right? So that's a very different aspect of it. But even for the people that are just, the casual sports fans that are used to having their husband or their boyfriend or their girlfriend or whomever, your dad or grandpa or whatever, that has the game on in the background when you happen to come visit on the weekend, or on, like Sunday Night Baseball or something. If a wife is used to her husband watching the game, those nuances we're not getting those anymore. So I think even the casual sports fan is realizing, wow, we're really missing a huge part of our culture, of our lives, because we don't have sports. And I know we're all going crazy. And this early release of the Michael Jordan documentary was just huge for all of us, to keep our sanity, to learn something new. For people that didn't really follow Michael Jordan back in the day, to learn something about him, that's basketball. But yeah, I think this has certainly been an experience for a lot of people, just realizing how intertwined sports is really in our daily lives, even if we're not working in it like you and I are.
I feel like in normal circumstances, like 95% of my conversations with people are somehow related to sports. And I know that because I work in the sports industry, and most of the people that I'm around on a daily basis are as well. So that seems very natural. But now at this point, even conversations are very different, because you have to think a little harder about what to talk about when there isn't this sort of ready-made subject to discuss.
I feel like normally, like, my conversations with, my friends or my family that don't work in sports, because I have a lot of my friends do work in the industry in some sort of capacity. Yeah, you're kind of like, well, talking to my aunt or a cousin or something, I'm not working. So, and I don't have any information. I have no inside information. You know what I know, like, that's the extent of our conversation. I can tell you, what I would be doing, what I would be missing out on. But yeah, you're really trying to rack your brain and think, okay, what are we going to talk about now? And I think we need, because I've had a few of these, we need there to be an option on Zoom calls to say, you know what, I'm done with my Zoom call for the day. You don't have anywhere else to go. Everybody knows that. We're all stuck in our homes. But you know what? Like, I've fulfilled this obligation or this meeting or this, a happy hour, which was great and fun. But we've been on here for an hour and a half now. And I kind of want to sit in silence and stare at my phone for a little bit. So here we go.
Yeah, no one knows how to end conversations anymore because there's literally nothing else that we need to be doing.
No excuse. You have no excuse now. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I do want to talk a little bit more about the career side of things because you and I both have been in the sports media world for a long time. And I don't know if it's true for you, but I know that it is for me, even after like a decade plus of doing this. People still don't understand what I do. And it's the strangest conversation to have with people, whether it's my parents even, or a stranger on an airplane as I'm traveling, or friends that I've known my entire life who just still don't quite understand what it is that I do. And then on the flip side of that, being a woman in the sports industry is a really interesting thing in and of itself right now, because there's so much momentum for so many women who are doing great things in sports. And I don't think I think about it as much as maybe other people do because it's just my job, but it's something that I get asked about a lot. So I wanted to have you hang out and have some interpersonal communication, first of all, but also kind of answer some of those questions for some people about what it is and how you do it and how you got to where you are. I know that you put out a video on your YouTube channel kind of chronicling your story, which, as mine has been, is not exactly a straight line from where you started to where you are now. So people who want the full version of that can go check out your video, but kind of the Reader's Digest version. How did you get into the sports media industry and now end up where you are with Fox Sports Midwest in St. Louis? It's such a complicated story, and I don't even know, it didn't organically develop. It just sort of happened. I wish I could say I was somebody at a really young age that knew exactly what I wanted to do. But it wasn't. Honestly, my whole world was dance. I started ballet at 2 years old. That was my thing. I thought I was going to move to LA and audition for music videos and go on tour with whomever. That was what I wanted to do. And if you didn't do that, then your next route was to quit completely. And I wasn't ready to do that. In my later years of college, I was with the dance team. And, it was really when I became a cheerleader for the Broncos in Denver was when my love for performance, if you will, kind of meshed with being an ambassador with sports organization. And I loved sports, like that was never a question, but I wasn't watching it the same way that my brother and my dad were. I was exposed to it always. So when, you tell your dad you want to major in dance in college and he's the one paying the bill and he's like, that's not going to happen. Like you could dance on your downtime or your extracurriculars or sure, try out for the Broncos cheerleaders, whatever that may be. You really have to think about what it is you want to do with your life. So later in college, I did move out to LA. That was something I always wanted to do, to try audition for Laker girls. So I extended that, the connection between being a performer with a sports team and being an ambassador and what that really entails. And when you're exposed to the media constantly, especially when you're in a market like LA, you kind of figure out, okay, this is kind of a world that sounds interesting to me. I started taking public relations classes and I was like, I did internships in college and thought, I don't really want to be on this side of things. I want to be asking the questions and I want to be readily involved with the event that's going on. I don't want to be a bystander. That's kind of not in my personality to just kind of sit back and see. So I needed something to fulfill that and be more involved. And that was when I got more involved with those broadcast classes, took up the internships, started with behind the scenes stuff that you and I are very familiar with. And I mean, there are a lot of people that are in college that think, I want to be a news reporter. I want to be a sports reporter. And that's my major. And my first day of my freshman year, those are the classes I'm taking. And I've already lined up all these networking opportunities. But yeah, it's truly a different journey for everybody. And mine took a lot longer. I think I was 29 when I got my first full-time on-camera job. That was not my job in St. Louis. It was the job I had before that. So it took me a long time. And I feel like I kind of started further back of the finish line or the starting line than everybody else did. But
as far as the, being a woman in sports, I feel like that's something that we can pride ourselves on now because we've gotten to this point and we've reached this part of the experience. Yeah, people ask you about it all the time. Yeah, people ask me about it all the time. But I feel like that's just a motivating factor for me to prove that it shouldn't even be a question that's being asked anymore, that it should just be, something that's just, yeah, there are a lot of women in sports, and there's women in the locker room, and there's women on the field doing interviews after games, and that's just normal, standard, everyday operating procedure. What's funny is I'm here in Arizona. I'm with my mom, and her next door neighbors, her son lives in Chicago, wants to be involved in the social media aspect of sports. He went to the journalism school at Mizzou, recently graduated. And I said, let me know if I can ever help you with anything, if you need me to put you in contact with people. And the parents had told me that, he originally thought he wanted to do what I was doing, that he wanted to be on the broadcast side of things. And then he said, but it's all women that they hire now. And I was like, yeah, we worked really hard for that. And I know it wasn't coming, from a bad place. It was just saying, yeah, I'm going to go a different direction because there's a lot of men, but they also hire a lot of women. And I was like, yeah, I'm really proud of that. There are a lot of women that get hired for these positions now, and I'm not going to apologize for that. So I'm really proud of all of the work of the women that have come before you and I to be able to get us to this experience, to get where we are now. And someday I hope that we are not asked that question. What's it like being a woman in sports?
Yeah, it's inspiring to me to think about the people who had it so much harder than you and I do. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say it hasn't been difficult. I want to ask you about some of the challenges along that way as well, because we've all had them. And that's true whether you're a woman in sports or not. You have challenges in your career. But I do think there are some that are specific to the experience that we've had that aren't in other stories as far as people pursuing this career. But you're right, we have it so much better than it was at other points in history. And that's because there were people who were willing to break the mold and then create a new one, it's so funny when you hear things like, yeah, well, they're hiring women for those positions, because for so many years, that's what we were fighting against was, well, they're not going to hire a woman for that position. So it's interesting to see how that momentum has sort of kind of snowballed, I think, really in the last, 5 years plus, with so many people in so many different positions, right? It's not just sideline reporters. It's in the studio. It's in analyst positions. It's on the PR side. We're everywhere. We're everywhere in sports. And that's what I think is making it more normal, like you said, so that at some point it's not going to be, wow, is it so hard to be a woman in sports? Because it's just going to be a thing that people do, whether you're a woman or not. But there are challenges. Is there a moment that you remember over the course of getting to this point where it was just very obvious that there was a disadvantage? Because sometimes there are those moments where you go, oh, okay, I have to work that much harder for you to take me seriously.
I think there was a moment where I realized, this is so hard. I don't know if I want to keep doing this, but it wasn't necessarily I was at a disadvantage because I was a female. I was at a disadvantage because of my lack of experience. And when I was in LA for quite a long time, I finished school there, graduated from Loyola Marymount, got my feet wet in the TV industry, spent 5 years behind the cameras before I got my first full-time on-air job doing small things on the side. I was an in-stadium host for the Dodgers for 3 seasons, and I think it was the second or third year I was doing that. I think it was the last year, because it was soon after I got my job in Tucson. And they were holding a faith and family day, as many teams do after games. And I'm of the Christian faith, and I decided that was a day I wanted to stay and see what some of the players had to say and their experiences with their faith in the game of baseball. And obviously Clayton Kershaw was one of the representatives. I believe Adrian Gonzalez was there as well. I can't remember who else was there. And I was just sitting in the stands as a spectator. I wasn't there in any working capacity, although I had worked the game. So I was just sitting in the stands listening to their stories. And it was at the moment just hearing them and how they had used their journey and their struggles to get to where they are today. And I'm driving home, I was just crying because I'm like, I felt like I was just so angry at the world because it kept telling me, no, you don't have the experience, you don't have the look, this is not a city that you're going to want, so therefore we're not going to hire you. There were many interviews that I did over the phone where they just said, we're concerned over your lack of experience. And it's like, your market 150, what are you talking about, my lack of experience? The whole purpose to go there is to get experience. So I felt like I had done so many little things to help build me up to get to that point where I was ready to make the big next step. And it was truly that day. And it wasn't, not everybody follows faith in the same light, and they're spiritual in their own sort of sense, or they're not at all. And I'm not one to judge that at all. But it was truly that day when I was just like, I need to find peace with my journey and where I am right now. Something's going to happen because it's so hard. And I tell people that write me in, they're in college or they're just about to graduate and they don't know what their next steps are. I make sure that they know how hard it's going to be. And one day you're going to come to a crossroads and decide, do I need to keep going? Is this worth it? Or do I need to find something else? And that was truly, I will never forget that day, because I felt like all this anger just kind of melting away, because I decided, you know what, I know I can do this. I know I'm good enough. I know there are so many people that have helped me get to this point. I'm going to keep going. And it totally paid off. And yeah, all of us have, those endless stories of, I got turned down. It was a no. It was, they didn't even want to talk to me. It was, they didn't even return an email. We're all going to go through that. But, so yes, in terms of your question, as far as those challenging experiences, but I vividly remember that day when I was like, you know what, I need to make a decision here. And it felt really good to kind of come to peace with that. Long answer, but that's kind of
no, that's great. That's great. I love that. And it's funny you mentioned kind of the people that were there helping you along the way. And I always think of this story. I'm also a person of faith, and there's this story in the Old Testament about a battle that was being fought, and the only way that they would win is if their leader had his hands in the air, and the only way that he could keep his hands in the air was if someone was physically holding his hands in the air. And I always think about that when we talk about community, and how many times, man, it gets so hard and you get so down, and you can push through some of those things because of somebody else who's literally holding you up along the way. Was there someone specific in all of that was your kind of rock in your journey to get past that really, really tough moment?
I think the easy answer for that is to say my mom. She's literally my biggest cheerleader in anything that I do, and she truly does not understand what goes on in the world of sports broadcast. Yeah. I know you said earlier, like, people don't understand what we do. My family truly does not understand what I do, but it didn't matter what kind of experience or story I needed to communicate with her. She was going to be there, and she was going to root me on, and she was going to support me in whatever decision that I needed to make. But I think the long answer is that there are certainly a lot of people in the journey that prop you up, people that see the end game that you're working for and help you along the way, and kind of pop in and try to give you, an opportunity or a word of advice, something that you didn't know that you needed, that just magically shows up in your inbox or on your text message. So it truly, I think my mother is my rock. She's my warrior. Whatever I'm going through in life, she's going to be there. But to get to this point, it truly takes, a handful of people to help you and support you along the way, for sure.
On the flip side of that, how do you deal with or fend off the comparisons? Because this industry is so competitive, and I know it's an ongoing process for me to not get in my own head about what someone else is doing, or the opportunity someone else is getting, or how I compare to. And listen, as women, I think we're very competitive with each other instinctively. And it's so hard to not let that get in the way of being part of the community that is supportive and encouraging and helpful, right? So what's that like for you? Because it's so difficult sometimes to succeed when you're stuck comparing yourself.
It's so hard to not compare in this age of social media, because we are all putting our highlights out there, our greatest hits, our biggest moments. And I had such a hard time with the comparison issue before I got my first full-time job in Tucson. You're sitting there watching people and they're posting clips on Instagram or YouTube, or you're watching somebody on television in a smaller sort of role, and you're thinking, why am I here when I know I could be doing that and I could be doing it better? Or why didn't they ask me to do that? I know this person and I've been involved with that. Comparison is the thief of joy, and I know that is just so easy to gloss over, but it is truly the case. And that's another thing I tell people that ask me questions, that reach out to me from college. When you decide to keep going, how do you not get down? And it's like, you really cannot compare your journey to everybody else's. I cannot tell you how many times I beat myself up because my hair didn't look like hers. My voice didn't sound like hers. Her voice sounds deeper. Why doesn't my voice sound like that? How can I do exercises to make my voice sound better on TV? Or I had more experience in that. I drive myself crazy with the amount of comparisons, and it's going to happen. I can't tell people that it's not going to happen, especially when we're all looking at our phones every day, looking at all the photos and the videos that we're posting, some of which aren't even, factually true. A lot of times there's interns that are working with the regional sports network and they take a picture on the field holding the microphone, and then all of a sudden it looks like they're actually working for the network. I'm guilty. I've totally done it. And then you see people like, wait, what did she do that I didn't? It's tough, and it's going to happen. And I still do it to this day. And I love my job, and I'm incredibly blessed to be where I am. But I think when you realize that you're doing it and then you put the blinders on, that's when you can successfully move forward. All right, kick yourself off, dust the dirt off, move on. The comparison thing is going to happen as long as you know how to properly put those blinders on and move forward. That's really, and then you have somebody kicking you in the butt saying, why are you even comparing yourself? Just move on. You do you. It's so important.
And that's what I was going to say. I think the biggest help for me, and I'm with you, I still struggle with it all the time because we all have goals and we all have aspirations and things that we want to accomplish in our career. And when you see other people accomplishing things, you feel like, oh, what am I not doing that they're doing? And why am I not? But you have to come to terms with what your goals really are, and then kind of own your own journey. Because like I said, with myself and like you explained, it's not always a straight line. And it seems like for some people, maybe it's more of a straight line and they kind of get in one lane and stay there the whole time, but it's not always a straight line. And that doesn't mean that it's anything less than, right? It's a different journey. It's a different experience. I know, looking back at the amount of time I've spent in a TV truck, that when I do step on air, I'm much better at it because I know what's going on behind the scenes. You can find little things like that. And then wherever you are in this journey, man, you have to be able to embrace what it is instead of looking at what it's not. And that's so easy to say. It's so hard to do because, again, we're all, I think, in this industry very, very goal oriented, and we're very competitive because you have to be to get to any part of this world. And I know we've talked about before, kind of that freelance mindset comes into it as well, where you feel like if you're not working more than someone else, then you're not doing enough and you're missing out, and all of those things that are helpful when done appropriately in pushing you and driving you can become very harmful if you can't find a way to, be content with the part of the journey that you're in right now. I know that's been such a challenge for me over the years. And it's, I think, probably ongoing for everyone throughout the duration, unless, maybe if you land your ultimate dream job, then you stop comparing, but I doubt it.
I doubt it. I highly doubt it. I'm sure people that are at the top are still, picking themselves apart. Absolutely. There's it's like a quote. I wouldn't call it a meme because it's not a joke at all, but it's like, nobody cares, work harder. And a lot of times I have to keep reminding myself of that. It's absolutely true. Nobody cares, work harder. I haven't reached the pinnacle of my career yet. I am very much still a rookie and still very green. And, I absolutely am so lucky to have the job that I do have, but there are still times when yes, we're competitive and I want more. And, you know, there's a lot of us that work together and we get selfish for our airtime and we want to do more. And it's not because we want to be on TV. It's because we want to do the work and you want to make those connections and you want to tell the stories. That's why you get involved in the business. But I always, whenever I get caught up in those moments, I always have to say, stop it. You know, remember when you a few years ago when you would have killed for this job. You would have never dreamt of a position like this. You just have to remember how far you came to get to that point. And I think you mentioned a really great point about how many times you've been in a TV truck and how that will help you when you're on the air. That is a highly underrated part of being successful and getting to where you want to be in this business. I think a lot of people think that you just have to, out of college or whenever you decide that this is what you're meant to be doing, land an on-air job immediately in whatever market you're going to do. It is not that easy. And I am so thankful, even though it did take me a long time to get that first job, for the experience that I got behind the camera, because now I know just how much work goes into it, how much I appreciate everybody that's helping me look good. And nobody will make you look better than a crew that respects you. And I truly believe in that. I remember going on job interviews and I'd introduce myself to the crew and, you know, the producers would tell me afterwards, I've never seen that before. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're people just like me working in the same industry. Just because they're not sitting at the desk doesn't make them any less different. Why wouldn't I have a conversation with these people? So being around that crew and learning exactly what they do, it's so helpful for people like you and me when we eventually do make that jump on camera, because you have such an appreciation for all the work that it takes.
The people that I've worked with who are the best on air and the best to work with are the people who understand what goes on in the truck. Because if you don't, even little things like, and people hate watching television with me. I don't know if they do with you, but I'm the worst to watch television with. I did it the other day. NASCAR came back, right?
Yes.
First NASCAR race. And I was at my parents' house and my dad had it on. And the first thing they're doing is, you know, the stand-up intro to the show, right? But they're in different studios. And in the background of one of the shots, you can see the program feed in a monitor behind the guy. And I went, why is it in that monitor? And everybody's like, what are you talking about? Some people listening to this are probably like, the program feed in the monitor? What are you talking about?
What are you talking about? What language are you speaking?
Yes. But it's people who don't know that process, who sometimes will, you know, call somebody out on air or make things more difficult for the people in the truck or whatever it is. And it's so frustrating having been in both positions. But the people who are the best at this job are the ones who, you know how the whole process works, because they can appreciate it and they can work with it instead of kind of fighting against it, I think, which is it makes such a difference.
And those are I'm so lucky that I was able to learn from a lot of those kinds of people. A lot of the anchors that I worked with in LA just really showed me what true professionalism in sports broadcast is like. So I was really lucky to be exposed to that. And, you know, the true model of professionalism. We're not all bad people. Some people get stressed out, you know, but you're absolutely right. I've been watching television with my mom and I'll be like, oh, did you see that? That was a mistake. She's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, I'll rewind it. So I have to rewind it 3 times.
All the time. I'm like, no, go back. I'll show you.
Yes. Yeah. I'm like 3 times later. And then she's like, oh, I never would have noticed that if you didn't point it out.
And then they're like,
I know
one cares.
I'm the worst
just
person.
Let us keep watching.
Yes. Like, I can't. No. We're terrible.
Yeah. It's fun watching TV with other TV people, because then it's hilarious when, you know, you just be watching, and a buddy of mine and I will do this all the time if we're watching sports and, you know, something happens with a graphic or, you know, they cut to a weird camera or whatever, and we'll both just go, pfft, and that's it. And we'll both know exactly what the mistake was.
Yes.
It's way more fun to watch with people who also notice those things, but highly irritating to people who don't care.
We are obnoxious to watch TV, especially live sports with.
Oh, yeah. Yes. And you can't turn it off either. There's no silencing that part of your brain once you're this far in.
We're so sensitized to it.
Yeah. I do want to ask a couple of questions that we got either on Twitter or Instagram, things that the people want to know. First of all, on Twitter from Greg, he says, huge fan of you both. Favorite moment in your career? Can you pick one? I mean, you've covered some pretty exciting things in the last little stretch, but
I mean, I don't know if you can really top the whole run up to the Stanley Cup, the first ever for the city. The parade was probably, that's probably up there. I don't know how you can top being involved with a Stanley Cup winning team for the very first time in their starved fan base history. For sure. I think probably that's 1A. 1B would probably be when the Cardinals clinched the division last fall. And that was my first official capacity being involved with the beer showers, the champagne in the locker room, all of that good stuff. When I got people, tweeting at me, "Are you okay? Why are they doing that to you?" And I'm like, this is awesome, but those are the moments that I miss because, my eyes burn like crazy, but you're part of the crew, you're one of the guys, and it's kind of like this, okay, there's this mutual respect here now. I'm drenched because we get along and they appreciate, the stories that you are telling about them and their journey to this point. So, that's got to be 1A and 1B, and I think I'm just spoiled at the year that we had last year in St. Louis, and it's been really fun. I don't know if you can say that, but it's been enjoyable in quarantine. Looking back on all of the moments we had last year for sports in St. Louis, so those definitely have to be up there. Certainly up there was not when I was in sports broadcast, but being able to witness the 2 Lakers championships when I was there as an ambassador to the organization. So I'll never forget those either, for sure.
Yeah, pretty exciting to be involved in any role in those experiences. Okay, this is from Patrick on Instagram, and this is a question I get asked a lot, so I'm curious to hear your answer. He says, how do you gracefully handle the sexist or derogatory comments made towards you?
To be honest, I don't know that. Does he mean in person, on social media?
Probably on social media, I think. Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, those do hurt really badly. People forget that we're humans. The things like, oh, I know why she got her job, they're very hurtful, and for people to just be so flippant in the things that they say. I do allow myself to absorb those and feel it, and then I have to move on from it because I do know that is not the majority of the opinion, that it's very easy for people to sit behind a keyboard and just throw insults at you and make fun of a way that you asked a question, or say that you talk too fast, or, whatever it may be. And there was certainly a moment last summer when I had a really hard time with some of the things people were saying on social media. So, and I'm one of those people, and I don't know if you are as well, I beat myself up a lot over the tiniest little thing. And it's just an unhealthy decline. And I got to pick myself back up and allow myself to feel it, have a moment, be mad about it, be angry about it, scream on the phone to somebody about it, and then just move on, because I know that I have worked hard to be where I am and that most of the people are not like that. And the best part is when somebody comes up to you in person and tells you something nice, because nobody is going to come up to you and tell you that they don't like the job that you're doing. Nobody has the guts to say anything like that. So you just have to remember that, we're worthy of the work that we're doing, and those mean, hurtful things that people say, it's not shared amongst the group. So I'm not going to lie, though, they do hurt for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to hear some things that people say, even if, you can just scroll past it and try to pretend it didn't happen. But I will say one thing that for me is super helpful is that I would say 95% of the time, that sort of attitude isn't reflected in the people that I work with or the athletes that I'm covering. So it's just some random person on the internet who doesn't know what I do and who isn't out there working in the same scenario and doesn't understand the professional relationship with the people around me. And for the most part, there's always going to be somebody, right? That is not a great experience. But for the most part, the people that I have worked with and the athletes that I have covered have not had that response at all. And that is sort of a grounding factor for me whenever that's going on, that I can go back to and realize, okay, the people that matter don't think that way. So I can just, like you said, deal with it, be mad about it, and then leave it alone.
think about the people's opinion that actually matters, your loved ones, your bosses, most importantly, and the teams that you're in a partnership with in covering them in a respectful way. And if they're happy, it doesn't matter. Nobody else's opinion matters.
Yeah. Yeah, that's also a lot easier said than done. Okay, last question.
Absolutely.
From Todd on Twitter, who's also on TikTok. Okay. And he says, favorite TikTok trend, least favorite TikTok trend, and why is he your favorite follow on TikTok? He's assuming he's our favorite follow on TikTok.
Oh, gosh.
Favorite TikTok trend and least favorite TikTok trend.
I guess we have to follow him on TikTok now. Gosh, there are so many trends that like come and go. Right now, the one that I'm really enjoying is the wipe one where they wipe the mirror. Have you seen that one?
Yes.
I like seeing everybody's different variations of that because I love the TikToks with all the crazy edits. I love to see how people are doing the edits. Maybe that's because we're TV nerds and we like that kind of stuff. I don't know. I'm fascinated.
It's probably true.
I
hadn't thought about that, but that's probably true.
Yeah. I like the special effect part of it. The one that I can't stand right now is the one where people are wearing roller skates or high heels or shoes or whatever, and they're falling at the beginning, and then they do that model walk. And I love the fierce model walk. I just don't understand the point of the trend. I don't know what we're doing here. I don't know. That's probably because I'm a millennial on TikTok, and this is not a space I'm supposed to be in. But there's also another one where it's like something dramatic that changed my life, check, and then it's a fake story. It's not even it's just a joke, and there's no end to the video. There's no point to the story, and I'm like, I just wasted 60 seconds of my life.
The number of times I get halfway through a TikTok story and I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I watching this?
Yes. Well, that is because TikTok is a time warp and it's a time suck and it just pulls you in, and
it absolutely
it's 2 a.m.
It's not a trend, but the one account that I am kind of obsessed with right now is, let me see if I can find it. It is, hi, this is Tatum. And it's as told by a dog, and it's hilarious. So if you're not following that, it's amazing. I have spent way too much time scrolling through that feed of TikToks. It's pretty funny. So that's my suggestion. Not a trend, but the one that I would recommend
putting that on my list if you have time.
Sure. Okay, last question, and then we will wrap this up for today. If you were to give advice to someone who either wants to get into this industry or is struggling in any of those low points that we've talked about, what would your advice be, or kind of what would the advice you wanted to have been given be?
I think it's a combination of a lot of the things that we talked about. Be patient. It's not a linear journey. It's going to take a lot of starts and stops to get there. Understand what it's going to take for you to eventually reach where you want to be in your career. It's going to be a lot of weird, odd, small, low-paying jobs at the beginning, and that's when you really need to decide if that is something that you want to do. And then the other big one is don't compare yourself to anybody else. You're unique, and that's what makes you great. And there's going to be a reason that you stand out to a sports director or a news director or an executive producer or a team or what have you. Keep perfecting your craft in whatever way that you can, and just believe in yourself, because you wouldn't have gotten to this point thinking this is the step that you want to take if you didn't. So just continuing the belief that that you can do this. So it's like a combination of a lot of things that we touched on, for sure.
Yeah, I think my one addition to that, which was all great, would be that there are a lot of ways to do this thing, this storytelling, this sports content creation. There are so many ways to do this thing right now, especially. So if it's not happening the way that you thought it was going to happen, don't necessarily close the door on other opportunities or other avenues to do the same thing. And there are a lot of ways to accomplish the same goal. So don't get discouraged if the sort of the first thought doesn't happen right away, because there are plenty of other options. Erica, thank you so much. This was so fun. I always love getting a chance to chat with you, and that's true whether we're bored in quarantine or not, but added bonus, a little extra socialization right now. But thank you so much, and we'll have to chat again sometime.
Anytime, Tara. Always a great time chatting up about life and baseball and TikTok and whatever else it might be. So thank you for having me.
Oh, that was so much fun. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. If you enjoyed that conversation, if you found it inspirational or just entertaining, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. That lets other people know that they might like it as well. And then I'm curious, were there any questions we didn't get to that you want to know about working in sports, about being a woman in this industry, about overcoming challenges, whether you're in the sports world or not? Leave those in the comments below, because the next time around, I want to be able to give you even more inspiration from people in the industry and from just really successful people in their own right. And we can all glean a little bit from that, right? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button on this channel as well, so that you get more content like this video, as well as additional content you'll see from me in videos released once a week, all with the goal in mind of relating to you a little bit more and connecting with stories that come from sports that help us all feel a little less alone in the world. So subscribe, like, go check out Erica's channel, and I'll see you next time.